We are really happy that we were able to tear you away from the State of the Union address tonight to be here with us.
Don't worry, the State of the Union is going to be amazing, and he's going to go about 3 or 4 hours, so when this wraps up, you still have 2 hours, and it'll be tremendous.
And
it's going to be the
amazing.
greatest State of the Union ever. And at the end, I'm going to fire Mueller. Mueller fired.
We're not going to talk about investing tonight. We are going to have the impersonation. So we actually have someone to thank for Jason being here tonight, and that is Alex Nushi. Alex, are you here? Okay. So thank you, Alex, because brilliant marketing, as always, with everything you do. Jason writes a book, and he comes up with a contest that whoever buys 200 or more books gets Jason to come for a lunch where he will hear the pitch and he will dissect it. And so he's done about 10 of these, you said.
Yeah, you know, when you publish one, this is my first book, and I really wanted to make sure the publisher, HarperCollins, got their money's worth. And
So that will be number 2.
well, I'm actually started writing it over the break. Writing a book is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that I probably should have done a while ago, but I didn't feel I was an expert on anything. You know, I kind of had that imposter syndrome for a long time. But at some point, my book agent said, listen, you've gotten all these offers to write a book. Now's the time to write it. You know, the investment in the cab company went okay, and plus the other companies, and you're pretty good at it.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
But he said, you know, you have something to say here. And I said, okay, I'll write it. And it was pretty funny because after they signed the contracts and everything, there was actually an auction for the book. There were 5 different publishers who put in pretty serious bids. And so then I meet with HarperCollins, and they said, so, this is my publisher voice, we're so excited about your book, and we're wondering, when do you think you're going to write it? And I was like, well, I think I'll write it over the break in the summer, and I'll get it done. And that's awesome. When do you think we'll be ready? And I was like, I thought about it. I said, I think it'll be ready when it's you tell me it's a bestseller. I love that answer. That's great. And we have another option for you. So we'll put it on the table. And there's 8 people in the room. You know, everything they do is big. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, some of your friends, and I won't say which ones, have had some help with their book. Well, okay. Like what? Like help, like an editor or something? Like, oh, you're the editor. I said, well, we have a person, they'll ask you questions in a microphone, and then they'll send you back words. And I was like, you want a ghostwriter? They're like, well, we're just putting it on the table, see if that works.
Okay, this book was not ghostwritten.
And
this
I was
is
like,
all
listen,
Jason.
I was like, I'm a journalist. I would consider it a personal defeat if I let anybody write one word of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to write it. So then they started getting nervous. And she's like, okay, well, can I read the first couple chapters? So I sent her the first 3 chapters, and she called me up. It's 11 o'clock at night and whatever. And I said, hey, how you doing? She says, oh my God, don't change a thing. It's so great. Raw and so I just tried to write it very candidly and tell people the truth.
And you did. Well,
I mean, startups are a shit show.
I agree. We're going to get there.
It's a complete, utter
Jason,
disaster.
He's already taken over the whole interview because this is what you do for a living. Really quickly, because I think this is going to help inform our conversation.
Yeah.
I'd like to know who's in the house. So how many of you are entrepreneurs? Raise your hands. Oh, look at that.
Nice. Well, if you write checks for a living, the entrepreneurs show up.
They show up.
I have 3 checks tonight, by the way. Whoever wants them, you guys can just fight them out. Just throw it on the floor.
You won't get out the door. And how many of you have already raised capital? Okay.
No, better question. How many of you need to raise capital?
That's my next one. Okay.
The people who raised capital already, you should have raised your hands as well. Because you always
You
need money.
always are raising.
Always be raising.
So before we get started with my questions, really quickly, if you've watched This Week in Startups, have you guys watched some of this? It's Jason's podcasts, which are excellent, and if you haven't, you need to start. But what he does on those podcasts is does a little commercial break. And I want Jason to do a very brief commercial break so that you know all the different media properties he has, because if you aren't taking advantage of them, you really need to. So
oh my God.
Let's start with Twist.
This Week in Startups is a podcast I started 8 years ago. We're going to hit 800 episodes. I do it twice a week. It's pretty straightforward. I sit down either with a venture capitalist or an entrepreneur. It's a front for me to get deal flow.
Yes, it is.
Although, after a couple of years of doing it, I actually kind of really enjoyed being an interviewer, so I kind of worked on that skill a bit.
Which is why I'm not going to get a word in edgewise here.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it really is
It's
one of the great
excellent.
joys of my life doing it, because I get smarter every week, and then people high-five me in the streets and say what their favorite episode is, which is just delightful. And my wife is like, every time somebody comes up, like, oh my God, I'm a huge fan of podcasts. I'm like, 1 second. And then I grab my wife and I'm like, tell her. She's like, no, I love Jason. And she's like, I
Yeah,
believe it.
it's
So
true.
she went to LA. It's a good story.
Oh, God, no,
My
no,
wife went to
no.
LA. It's a really good story. She goes to LA and she's like, okay, I got 2 days away from Jason. Thank God. Because all he does is talk. She
You're not
gets
going to
in her
learn
Uber.
anything tonight.
She gets in her Uber and she starts hearing my voice. She says to the driver, what's on the radio? She thinks it's CNBC. She goes, oh my God, do you listen to this podcast, This Week in Startups? There's this guy, Jason Calacanis, and she's like, it's my husband. She's like, oh my God, can you introduce me? So I gave her like a VIP $5,000 ticket to the next event, and it was quite
How
charming. But
awesome.
anyway,
great.
That's all. This is all you
Okay,
need to know.
Launch Festival.
15,000 people. We have been doing it for 10 years. We're going to do it in Sydney this year, and then we'll bring it back to San Francisco next year. We give away 95% of the tickets to our events for free, and we give away 250 tables, little round tables in the demo pit to founders. So basically, when I came into the industry, it cost $20,000 to be on stage at the demo conference, and I was broke, and I was an outsider, and I would lobby crash at all these events. Esther Dyson and Tim O'Reilly got really sort of exasperated and annoyed by me being in the lobby every time and not paying for a ticket, to the point at which Esther Dyson would be like, here's a ticket, Jason. Don't tell anybody I gave it to you. And then Tim O'Reilly did the same thing. So I was like, you know what? If I ever make it, fuck it. I'm going to do a conference and give everybody who's a founder a free ticket, and give everybody who, and you know what? I break even on these things. Sometimes I lose $100,000. Sometimes I make $100,000, whatever. But it becomes huge
Exactly.
deal flow for me.
Exactly.
And it's incredible goodwill.
Notice the theme here, deal flow. Launch scale, launch incubator.
Yeah, so Scale is just a smaller event, 1,500 people. Again, we give away 95% of the tickets, and that's just 2 days of learning how to grow your company. It's for people who have gotten their seed funding, have a product in market. And the incubator I started like 2.5 years ago, 7 companies. I invest in each one, and then they spend 12 weeks with me, 18 sessions. We look for companies that are from outside of the Silicon Valley, typically. So probably 5 of 7 come from outside of there. They fly in, and then we put them in front of the world's greatest investors every week for 5 investors in the front row, 6 investors. And if you can't raise money after that, either I shouldn't have picked you, you're horrible, your idea's terrible, or you're so far ahead of all of us that nobody can get it. Because if I introduce you to 200 investors, and you can't raise money, something's dreadfully wrong, and that's happened. I make mistakes too. I didn't kick 2 people out of the program. 2 people didn't complete the program. Let's leave it at that.
Well said. Okay.
Anyway,
And-
it's a pretty cool program. If you know anybody who is pre-Series A, but post-product launch, we call this the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot that you have a Series A done, not too cold that you're in the idea phase, or God forbid you wrote a white paper and you're doing an ICO, because I don't want to go to jail. Leave me out of that.
We're going to talk about that
Nonsense.
too if we get there. And last one, private syndicate, because that's,
So jasonsyndicate.com was really, when I said it before, that this Week in Startups was a front for deal flow for me to meet founders, and that's true. It's an excuse to get together and talk for an hour. The book was really a front to inspire people to angel invest, because all the VCs have basically gone downstream, and they're like, oh yeah, totally, we'll do your Series A when you've got $3, $4, $5 million in revenue. And they used to do a Series A when you had a prototype or an MVP or a team and a business plan. And VCs are just like, forget it, we'll just give you $10 million when it's kind of a done deal and it's guaranteed. So this early stage investing, all the VCs left. And so it's just us angels and syndicates. And we were on AngelList, we were the most active syndicate. When we left AngelList, we had 900 people. We were just, adding a couple of people a week. When the book came out, we're at 1,100. Since the book came out on July 18th, we now have 2,100 people in the syndicate.
Really?
And when we emailed the last deal, we had 3 or 4 times as much demand for the deal. So now we have this incredible high-class problem.
wow.
We need to give more money to founders. And quickly. because we have too many angels who want to invest. I'm
they'll be-
being slightly farcical
There'll be a
here, but I
line out
find
the
myself in a
door.
crazy position where we just funded one company for $300,000, and there were, 3 out of 4 people who wanted to do the deal didn't get in. So I told those other folks, if they do another round, I'll give you first shot at that. I went back to the founder and said, hey, listen, if you hit this revenue target in the next 6 months, I'll trigger I'll do a seed
next-
extension with you.
yeah, yeah.
So now I'm like really dialing it in where I can give people some money to grow, but then put the carrot over here and say, hey, and if you hit these notes and you're like a legit adult, serious business and you're focused on building a real business, I'll give you even more money I got sitting right here. So it's good. We're going to be able to, I think, do what Sequoia did with WhatsApp, which is we're going to be able to fund people 3, 4, 5 times.
Which is great.
Even might be able to do a Series A. So we did $1 million deal for Cafe X, and I'm going to try to do a $2 million deal this year is one of my goals. So that means I have to get 99 investors to do
All accredited,
all accredited right now.
Right.
But we have a nice relationship with Seed Invest.
which we happen to be an investor in.
Great. So really great team
Ryan
over
wanted
there.
me to ask you if you're
No, I
going to.
think that, basically, I thought these non-accredited investor platforms were a little fugazi, because a lot of the companies I saw on there were ones we had passed on, or there was 1 or 2 that we had seen that we thought these might be ethically challenged companies. I'll leave it at that. I tell some stories in the book
Yes, you
about
do.
those companies, but we changed the names. That's another good story. Anyway, but I thought, wow, Ryan's really got it together, and the companies that he's doing, he only accepts 1 out of 500 companies or 1 out of 200 companies. I don't know what it is. So he's really smart, and I was like, let's do a little project together. So we've done 2 or 3 of these live crowdfundings.
Yeah.
And so eventually, we have 300,000 emails. So eventually, if the SEC and Ryan can get this all dialed in and make it nice and safe for everybody, I would love to be
To do
able
the
to have
unaccredited.
1,000 investors
We would too.
who are like, civilians, non-accredited, non-rich people put $500 in each for $500,000. And then a bunch of rich people, and 100 of them, put $5,000 in each and put $1 million into a company. After I vetted it and Ryan's vetted it, and we say, hey, this has a pretty good chance of a return, and these are not criminals. Which is kind of the ICO problem.
Which is the answer, which we are going to get to in a few minutes, I promise. Unless
I'm
you
sorry if
wanna-
there's a bunch of crypto
unless you
people in the
just
room.
wanna- Yeah.
Hodl, hodl,
So if I can find
hodl,
it.
your coins. It's going to be huge.
Hold on, I'm going to find this question. We're just going to get this out of the way. Okay, so the question is this. You've been vocal about ICOs, which are initial coin offerings.
Yep.
Yesterday, you posted, "Why do you need crypto, Jason?" Which seemed like the sequel to your article, "The Most Dangerous Project We've Ever Seen," which was 6 years
Give me this
ago.
question.
Okay, so question. Would you briefly share your thoughts about crypto? Briefly.
Give me this question here. Okay, guys, honestly.
He doesn't like questions.
No, it's not. I'm joking with you. Just cryptocurrency is a real technology, and there were really interesting, sort of weird people into it, like anarchists and, like anarchists with PhDs in math. That's a really unique subset of people. Thank you, that guy over there. He's super weird. Might not have bathed in a couple of days. Who knows? But anyway, these were weird people, but super interesting and inspiring, and they actually pulled it off. They built interesting stuff. Ethereum, super interesting. Bitcoin, super Ethereum. Stellar, which my sister-in-law and Jed did, super interesting. And then this wacky thing happened. It started going up, and then this even more wacky thing happened. All these criminal elements, as well as incompetent people rushed in. And so we went from having, 90% of the people in this were legit, understood the technology, and legitimately wanted to see it occur in the world for very noble reasons. And to understand cryptocurrency, it's not an easy thing to understand. You have to understand the internet, got to understand peer-to-peer technology, cryptography, blockchain, the ledger, mining, new concepts. It's all weird stuff you have to understand. And then all these, criminal element and incompetent people got in and said, oh, it's free money. Great. And I said, guys, I've seen this movie before. It is not going to end well. And everything takes off. And just today we saw the SEC, it's just frozen some accounts of some ICOs. And the long and short of it is, it's a real technology that's being co-opted. And if you have a global currency that is anonymous, or as the guy will correct me, well, technically it's not anonymous, it's pseudo-anonymous, which means you can use, I get it, yeah, it's anonymous if you want it to be. It's traceable if you want to know the wallets. It's highly manipulated, which has been proven now through different studies. The run-up from $150 in Bitcoin to $1,000 was done by some bad actors who manipulated it, and that started everything, so that should tell you something. And perhaps some large percentage of the mining in Bitcoin is in China, which is not exactly a democracy, that they're pretty good at hacking, and there are some other criminals who are involved in it to use money laundering. You put all that together, any system that can be hacked or manipulated will be. And that includes the public stock market. And the SEC would catch people, pink sheets, all this nonsense, pumping and dumping. Now you've got a global system. Not just Americans, but everybody on the globe. And it's anonymous. What do you think will happen? Do you think that, I don't know, a bunch of Russian or Chinese criminal hackers are going to look at that kind of system with this kind of foam and go, you know what? We could make a lot of money ripping off a bunch of entitled American assholes, or, nah, we shouldn't do that, fuck it, that would be unethical. No, they're going to take all your money because they hate you. And they're in Russia or Eastern Europe, and they're looking at Americans going, fuck these people. They got too much money, they're the enemy, I have no job opportunity here.
God.
And fuck that guy Calacanis, he got lucky 6 times. Let's go take their money. And that's what they're doing. It's a giant, huge scam right now. 90% of it are incompetent and or criminal people. The 10% legitimate people are still there. That dude over there who's got the PhD in math and physics, and he's really weird. Avoid him at the after party. Could get strange. That kind of stuff is, you know, you have to, and the big high order bit here is, if you don't police yourself as a industry, you will be policed. And you will be policed by people more powerful who don't understand your business. So what happened today? Boom, the SEC started arresting people or, you know, doing their cases. The SEC are very serious, principled people, not unlike the FBI and Mueller. These are career people who decided at some really early age, I want to have a gun and a badge, and I want to catch bad people. Like, they decide when they're 12 to do this. And now they're 57, and they're good at it. Mueller's 106. He loves what he does. They can't wait to catch people. And here's the thing. You can say it's a coin or a token or a Chuck E. Cheese fucking token. You say whatever you can call it what you want. And here is all that matters.
Forget your next book. I want the movie. I want the movie.
All it takes is some attorney general in Florida who goes, you know what? She's like, nobody knows me. I'm from fucking Tallahassee, Florida, and I want a bigger job. Here
you
goes
guys
some
thought you were going to learn something tonight.
Here's some criminal people from some big city, some city slickers, who took money from retirees in the grand old state of Florida. I'm going to get me a pelt and put it on my, and you know what? This BitConnect nonsense that went down, and anybody know about that? BitConnect! Is that a funny video? It's pretty funny. You look up BitConnect on YouTube, you'll see the video. Anyway, sure enough, an attorney general from Florida, I don't know which great city from Florida, has 7 people who lost their money, and she is going to start arresting people. And you go down the list, and it's like, this person lost 10, 20, 40, 60, 150, 250. Like, there are people who are retirees in Florida who put $150,000 or $250,000. I don't know if they're accredited or not. I suspect they're not, because they want their money back. And if they were accredited and they lost $100,000, they'd be like, fuck it, I did something stupid. I lose that when I go play blackjack or poker with Jason. Fuck it, who cares? These are people who want their money back.
I should not have asked this question. Listen, I'm pulling you back. I'm pulling you back
all
because I need to educate this audience.
You're all gonna be arrested, because if you sell tokens to people and they believe it's a security, you know who the SEC is going to side with, or the Attorney General of Florida? The people who lost their money, not the people who tried to steal it. Next question. Sorry.
Next question.
I don't mean to go off on this, but it's so fucking obvious. And then, you know what the real problem is? All these crypto heads, except for the PhD in physics and math over here, they all are like, shh, hodl, just hold it. Let all these dipshits go on Reddit get them all excited.
Yeah.
Let's pump them up. Let's get in our Telegram room and pump this shit up and sell it or hold it. And you know what? They're complicit.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends hate me right now. Some family members too, probably, because I call bullshit on this on CNBC and right here and, whatever, and write articles. You know what? If you don't call bullshit on people stealing civilians' money, you got to get your head examined.
Yeah.
This is evil. These are people's retirement. And it's illegal to sell securities without following the proper rules at the SEC. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Sorry. You got me all worked up.
We're done. We're done with the evening.
When I do a syndicate for a company, I take it so seriously. I tell these founders, listen, I'm going to tell these people I'm investing. They come along for the ride. They're accredited, so they know what they're doing. But I'm like, make sure you have 18 months of runway, minimum of 12. Don't make us the first money in, make us the second half of your round. So close 500K, we'll put the second 200 or 500 in.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you send a monthly update. I make people go through hoops. And be accountable, and I write books like this because I don't want to see people lose their money. I want to see people have a great outcome. And you know what? The American business capitalist structure is so criminally biased towards entrepreneurs already. You can fail in this country, lose everybody's money, and get high fives. And be like, great, you learned something, what's the next idea you have? You don't need to cheat. And ICOs and all this nonsense, crypto bullshit, is all cheating, in my mind, and stealing. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks. The crypto guy's applauding. But he's really like,
Crypto investor.
HODL, really, seriously, HODL. It's going to be okay. 9,000 today.
So in your book, I'm going back to the book, okay? You have 4 golden questions. Recall those?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions that you should ask yourself as an investor.
Exactly. And what I always think is that if the entrepreneurs hear the questions that investors ought to be asking themselves, they'll be better.
Sure.
So I can read them. You want to talk about them? Why have you chosen this business? So I want to hear what you're listening for in that response when you ask an entrepreneur, why have you chosen this business?
Being an entrepreneur is brutal 9 out of 10 days. And on the 10th day, it's absolutely fucking arduous. There is never like this great easy day as an entrepreneur. You raise $3 million in your Series A, and you're like, oh my God, the money's in the bank. Look, Bank of America, $3 million, we did it. Oh fuck, we got to deploy $3 million and we got to come back with 100x. Oh Jesus, what are we going to do? And then, you guys are arguing over getting Arion chairs or this other chairs that cost $600. Hey, dipshits, we got to fucking get 100x return for social capital, and Chamath is going to be breathing. I'm going to have a board meeting in 30 days, shit. Like, it's going to suck. And that's the truth. Like, look, I got some friends who are in the thick of it right now, like Travis with Uber, like, it never got easier for him. It got harder.
On that point, you were one of the first. So Jason was one of the first investors, 25K, as a scout for Sequoia, correct?
These are the numbers that are out there, yeah.
Okay, those are the numbers that are out there. And he invested in Uber. So I need to know, is Travis as much of an asshole as he's made out to be in the paper?
He is miscategorized that way. He's actually super sensitive, like hypersensitive, I would say. I think when we look back historically on it, the press will make you into something.
Right. That's why I'm asking the question, because it's the press that has created this.
When he puts his head down and he plays the video game called business, he is like, it's like Gary Kasparov playing chess or whatever. He's just a champion, and he is going to focus and win. And I think with Uber, it was growing so fast and in so many cities that they created a system where the city heads got to make decisions. So Uber Miami and Uber Austin and Uber LA, they each had
their own
a head who would then make their decisions. What that did was, that kind of distributed decision making just made everybody competitive, and they just succeeded at so many things, and they were going so fast. But when companies grow that fast, sometimes you got to change gears, and you got to say, hey, you know what? This model got us to here, but it's not going to get us to the next phase. And I think that was, if there was an error, and errors are always made in these things, in these companies, that was maybe the biggest that I saw, which was, okay, now that we let everybody go crazy and just really pursue excellence on a local basis. Let's have some standards on a nationwide basis. And he'll be back. I'll invest in his next company if he'll let me. I'll be the first investor if he lets me. And he's a good person. What happens is, I don't think they had any more problems than, say, Facebook, but they were compressed into a short period of time.
Shorter time.
And then you have social media, which didn't exist back then. And I really think a portion of it had to do with the fact that Trump got elected, and people were like, how do we get our power back here, right? And deleting Uber because Travis joined that council or whatever. That really started a lot of it too. And mistakes were made. Nobody can look at that situation and say there weren't mistakes.
But were you friends with him from Brooklyn?
I knew him when I was a journalist. I interviewed him in 1997, and we were friends, and we still are.
And that's how, okay. No,
and that's how that deal happened. But the point of the question is why you're doing this is, I've had people say to me, I'm doing it because Pinterest sucks, and they really need to do this feature, and they don't have this feature. And we're going to do that feature, and we're going to make a lot of money. And we'll probably get bought by this other company that's competing with them. And I just think to myself, okay, dummy. You're two people in a garage, and you think that the feature that you've come up with that hasn't been implemented yet by the people at Pinterest, Airbnb, or Tesla, you actually think that they haven't thought of that idea, and they're that successful? And you actually think that adding a 5% or a 10% feature to your product that they don't have is going to make you win? You have no understanding of business, and you want to do this because you want to make money? That's not a good reason to do a business, because we just talked about it's going to be really hard. Elon Musk, God love him, we've been friends for a long time, and he's been suffering with this Tesla company forever, trying to save the planet, literally. And every time he solves a problem, the press is like, oh, you actually produced an electric car? Fuck you, that car's too expensive. He's like, no, but it's really expensive for this one, and we're going to get a bunch of rich people to buy it, but then the next one will be half as much. And then the one after that will be half as much. And they're like, yeah, it's only got like 150 range, fuck you. And he's like, well, it's got 150-mile range, but batteries are getting a little bit better, not exactly Moore's Law, but we'll kind of figure that out. And then the latest one came out, and it's 300, I got the Model 3. He gave me one of the Founder series. Nice. And I was like, thanks, Elon, it's good to have friends. And I'm driving this thing, and I load it up. I'm like, give me a fucking break. This thing's got 320 miles on it. I can go 320 miles. He totally put it in everybody's face, and he did it for $35,000 to $65,000. And now the press is like, oh, it goes 320 miles. You can drive to Tahoe and back, or you can drive to LA from San Francisco. Fuck you, the superchargers are too slow. And you're like, but the supercharger adds 300 miles an hour. And they're like, yeah, no, range anxiety doesn't exist. Fuck you. The problem now is I have now supercharger anxiety. And you're like, come on, you're making this shit up. Like, oh, and by the way, Elon Musk, you missed the target, and you're having fun with the blowtorch, promo for your boring company, and you should be more focused. And just I want to tear my head out when I see this
there's a backlash.
Hater, Wall Street Journal writer, throwing pebbles and rocks at the back of Elon's head while he's trying to save fucking global warming. He's literally holding the dam like this. Fuck it. This planet's we're gonna burn up the entire planet. If I get these electric cars out here, I could save the planet with the solar city and everything, and I don't sleep anymore, and I work 7 days a week. And this idiot from the fucking Wall Street Journal is like, fuck you, Elon Musk, fuck you. And he's throwing rocks at him. Like, can you stop throwing rocks at Elon Musk? He's saving us. He's going to bring us from planet Earth to Mars. He's going to make us interplanetary in case this planet gets hit by an asteroid. Leave him the fuck alone. And that's an important lesson for all of you as entrepreneurs, which is there are haters out there. And these are sad people who have nothing going on. And what I've learned over time is, and listen, there are journalists who are doing great work. I don't mean to paint with the wide brush. But there's also a contingent of people who have nothing to do all day. But look at people trying really hard to change the world and make some shit happen. And they're so jealous and they're so empty inside that the only thing they can think to do when they see greatness in front of them that they could never achieve is to pick up a rock and throw it at that person. And what you have to do is go tell that person, go fuck yourself, I'm busy, go back to your mom's basement and have some fish sticks and play Xbox. Because the adults are going to go change the world and you are going to do nothing but eat fish sticks in your mom's basement, so get the fuck out of here. And that's what you have to remember as entrepreneurs. Because you will face this over and over and over again. You'll be like, I have a great idea. People are like, oh, you have a great idea? Tell me your idea. Oh, I see. You think people are going to stay on people's couches? Okay. How's that going to work? So, oh, yeah? Like a serial killer? You're going to stay on a serial killer's couch?
Airbnb.
It's like, no. You don't understand. You're going to log in with Facebook, and you'll have a rating system, and you rate each other, and it's called Airbnb, and it's great. And you could host somebody, and they could stay in your extra room. You could host a serial killer. It's like there's like 2 serial killers every decade. Like, are we going to stop everything we do for the serial killers? If that's the case, we shouldn't build apartment. Fuck it, we shouldn't have cities. We should all go to the basement, lock the doors, because there's serial killers in the world. That's how we're going to, and you know what? By the way, the punchline of that story is that's me. I thought when I heard Airbnb, this is fucking crazy. How many people have stayed in an Airbnb? Raise your hand nice and high. Okay, how many people have hosted an Airbnb and or a serial killer? Okay, anybody have a serial killer? Okay, and when I heard that story, and this is a big lesson I've learned as an investor, which is my opinion and my biases and all this stuff. You have to disconnect yourself from this. Because it's not important what you think as the investor. What's important is why the founder's doing it, how skilled they are, and what their customers think. And when you try to superimpose your limited ability as a human to figure this out, you're not going to be a good investor. And once I disconnected myself and my ego from the investment process, then I started to get a little bit crazy. I rewired my brain. And I rewired my brain to say, okay, what's your idea? Okay. So, all right, it's got like a 2% chance. No, it's actually kind of got a 1%. You know what? That's got a 1 in 200% chance of working. Yeah, that's 200 to 1. But if it does work, that's going to pay off 5,000 to 1. Let's do it. Fuck it. It's worth trying. Sure, let's try to pull the ace of spades from the deck twice in a row. If it pays off, all you have to do is do the odds, right? And so we need to take big, bold risks. And the problem is, the list of reasons of why something will fail is 10 pages long. And the list of reasons of why something will succeed, it's typically like 1 or 2 things go right. And then you succeed. And that's another thing you have to learn, is sometimes if something doesn't have long odds, it's probably not worth doing as an investment or as an entrepreneur. Don't do the easy things, do the hard things. Fail at a hard thing. Don't succeed at something that's going to become $1 million a year in revenue business. I mean, I'm not going to hate on somebody who builds $1 million a year dude or dudette business. Congratulations, your cafe or your consulting business makes $1 million a year. Good for you. Great. You've got escape velocity. You're not going to run out of money. It's not bad. But go big.
So when you're looking at the entrepreneurs, you talk a lot about it's founder. So what are you looking for in the founders? Because you talk about the ideas can pivot, the ideas can change.
Just look them in the eyes when they answer the questions. So here, I'm talking a mile a minute, right, on the subject. When my team sees me in a meeting with founders, like one of them was like, oh my God, it's so refreshing, you didn't talk. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm being insulted, but okay. Well, what I try to do is just get people talking, like Columbo. Which if you're over 30, you know who Columbo... Raise your hand be honest for a second. Who doesn't know who Columbo is? Be honest if you don't know who Columbo is. Okay, I'm going to educate you people. Columbo is a detective played by Peter Falk in the 70s, and the series was so good, it went into the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. He died, he had a floating eye, and he played it's kind of part of his character. He was played like a bumbling detective, but he was actually brilliant. And the way he did things was, he would say, oh, the murder was last night. Yeah. And you went and you got pasta. You said you got pasta at the Italian joint. What kind of pasta did you get? You got the linguine?
Oh my God.
Okay, great. Because I was talking to the chef over there. They said they don't have linguinis except on Sunday nights when they have the Sunday Night Linguine Festival. So I don't I don't know. My wife says I'm a nudge. I don't know. What's the reason? And so he's basically acting stupid and letting the other person talk. That's what you do in a meeting with an entrepreneur. What are you working on? Why are you doing this idea? What do you think your big challenges are going to be? If you raise $1.5 million and deploy it, what will the business look like? What will you have achieved in those 18 months? And you just listen and listen. And what happens to me is, if the person is really great, a big neon sign forms above their head that goes, bzz, invest, bzz, winner, bzz, invest, bzz, winner. And I just like, okay, this person's a fucking winner. I got to invest in this company. And it becomes sort of this sort of second nature thing where I can just tell if the idea matters to people. It's sort of a skill I picked up in poker. You can kind of tell if people are lying or full of shit, or you can tell if somebody's really good at lying and you can't read them. Like, that happens a lot in poker. You're like, oh my God, this person is so good. They're a sociopath. I can't tell if they're full of shit or not. And you get that with entrepreneurs. Like, it's a self-selecting group of people who are, in some cases, sociopaths. In some cases, they're just really good at deluding themselves. And when they tell you they're building $1 billion business, you look at them and go, yeah, they actually believe that. But they're building a dry cleaning on demand business, so that's not possible. This is not going to happen. But they believe it. So fuck it, maybe I should believe it, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to just be able to read people, I think. And then I think objectively look at people's work. This is something I really had a leak in my game early on as an angel investor, because I meet with somebody, they'd tell me what they were going to build, they would tell me the business model, they would tell me the market, I'd be nodding and I'd be like, it's totally going to work. And what was happening is I was superimposing onto that person my skill level, because I thought I can make that work. And I was like, and I know like 20 entrepreneurs, my good friends, they would all make that work. Yeah, that's totally possible. But what I had neglected to do was understand that I would have no ability to run that business, that it's their business, they have to make it happen. And that's when I started backing off a bit and saying, show me what you built. And maybe asking a question. Oh, why did you make this design choice? Or why did you make this UX choice? So in the meeting I had today, I asked a couple of questions. Hey, what about this? What about that? And I like to see what the founder's thinking is and how they came to that conclusion. And I've actually backed off on investing in people's ideas. I like to see them have their MVP done, a couple of customers, again, that Goldilocks zone. Because what's changed in the last 7 or 8 years is, back then, you could see 2 or 3 companies a week, 2 companies a week, 3 companies a week in Silicon Valley, and basically see all the good stuff. Now, with Y Combinator graduating 140 companies and 500, 5,000, 50,000 startups, whatever, they're going to wind up calling this thing. I think they've done 1,900 investments. There's just too many companies, and it's too easy to get your company launched. So what entrepreneurs need to realize is, you're not going to raise money in all likelihood unless you have some level of traction. And it's your job to build a team, to bootstrap it to some level of a MVP or traction. Angels are also moving down. All the VCs went downstream. They want you to prove it. Also, angels are starting to move down. And they're saying, you know what? I'll totally meet with you when you have an idea, or if you're credible, or I'll meet with you when you have your business plan and a prototype. But I'm going to say, not yet, but let me know when it launches and you have 6 weeks of traction. That's what I'm seeing more and more angels do. So I just think people need to be, and I'm doing it a lot more, because I want to see what you can build and what you're capable of, because the stakes have risen.
They have.
It was like when I was in LA, anybody see this movie Molly's Game? Molly's Game? So I was in LA, and Molly used to always text me, hey, come over to the Four Seasons and play with Toby and this person and that famous person. We're like, yeah, I don't really want to buy in for $50,000 because I suck at poker. I'm good at it now, not great, but good. A good night, I'm very good. I can play now. But back then I wouldn't do it. And what happened in LA was everybody was okay or bad or good at poker, and now everybody's very good. Everybody's read the books, everybody's played for 10 years. Like, LA is better than Vegas at poker now. And so what's happened in the startup community is everybody's gotten good. You look at every enterprise product here now, you're like, oh shit, that's a good looking product. Oh yeah, you know how to do sales. People have figured it all out because people are writing books and Lean Startup and Tim Ferriss and Eric Ries. I mean, all the information's out there. Angel List, how to raise money, Naval,
No, it's a
Venture
different
Hacks.
world than when we started.
Than 10 years ago. So you have to up your game. And since anybody can build a polished looking product now, everybody's like, you know what? Polished looking product speaks. I used to think that, no more. Traction speaks.
Traction.
Show me your traction.
Okay. How much time do we have? Okay. So let me do this.
I'm on fire tonight. We could go 3 hours.
You think?
I'm ready. Let's go. I don't know what time we have to be out of here, but I'm willing to go 3 hours.
Okay, I want this to be quick, and then I want to move subjects really quickly, though. So you talk about feeling sometimes like you're a hospice worker. I always say I feel like I'm in triage tending to the wounded on battlefields,
Oh, yes.
because that's where I spend all my time. So what are the signals that tell you when a company's on a downward spiral?
Yeah. So if the founder stops sending you updates, that's a pretty good sign that they're going to be dead soon.
Check, yep, happens.
Yeah, because just to give you a little context, like Travis, as the company was becoming worth billions of dollars, would text me, "Oh my God, check this out." Email me, "Hey, look at this." Like he didn't stop just because he was successful and had a unicorn company. He didn't stop sending the early investors updates.
He was sharing.
In fact, he was crazy. He'd call me at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. I'd be like, "Oh, it's Travis." My wife was like, "But it's Saturday night." I was like, "Got to go outside." Talk to Travis for an hour and a half. It's 1 a.m. and we're talking about surge pricing on New Year's Eve. I mean, this is the kind of founder he is. Like he's maniacal when it comes to perfecting the business. When they stop emailing you or start telling you stuff. The other thing is, I always know that there's a problem when people are like, "Oh, I'm going to Web Summit at Sea." Stop, TEDx Tallahassee, TEDx
It's
Phoenix.
a bad sign, guys.
That's a really bad sign because it shows the founder is totally lost focus. Like, by the way, how about we summit revenue? How about we summit hiring a CTO? There's other plateaus and summits we can go to, but by the way, don't you understand that TEDx is the TED for people who can't afford and/or aren't smart enough to be on the TED main stage? I don't want to use an offensive term, but there's a bus that people talk about that is not the regular bus. That's what TEDx is. I would never say that, but that's what somebody told me. Literally somebody who spoke at TEDx, fuck it, I'll say it. Somebody who spoke at TEDx was like, "Oh, that person speaking at TEDx? Oh, they're on the short bus." And that's the joke of the people who speak at TED and go to TED. That's what they call people who go to TEDx. Now, I'm not saying that's true or not. I am saying it's offensive, and I would never say anything like that. I'm relating a story. But if you're going to the summit at sea, and literally I had a company who's like, "Oh my God, we're going to Summit at Sea, and we got Web Summit." And I was like, whoa, I'm sorry, what? And like, "Yeah, we're going to be speaking at Web Summit in Dublin or Lisbon or bullshit." I'm like, what are you speaking about? Our company, we were accepted to Web Summit. I was like, wait, you were accepted to Web Summit? Yeah. And they're like, and the best part is instead of it costing 15, they only charge us 9. I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, yeah, we talked to them, that we were accepted, and then we talked to them on the phone, and they said they really want us there, and that they're totally blown away by our business plan. There's going to be so many investors, and they said they would take $6,000 off, so we had to do it. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
$9,000.
Well said.
How many clicks on Facebook and Google could you get of people? You could get 9,000 clicks of people who might buy the fucking product and come to the website. There's only 9,000 other founders there trying to find money. It's the worst place to find money.
Well said. Okay,
it's a disaster.
I do need to shift gears here,
Yes.
Kimberly, because I've got no questions in, so I might as well go to something else I'm not getting an answer
All right, lightning
to.
round. Here we go.
No, this isn't actually lightning. I'm going to call you out on something here. So, in one of your chapters, you described
Chapter 5.
why Silicon Valley is the center of the universe.
Yep.
You said, of all the money being invested in the U.S., 30% is being invested in the Bay Area, which is almost double the money that's invested in Boston, New York, and Los Angeles combined. You go on to write, there's only one upside to angel investing in a small market like New York or Los Angeles. He's calling New York and Los Angeles a small market, guys.
Yep.
You are going to be worshipped. There are a few angels in these regions and you'll be constantly in demand. Also, you're going to feel great about how efficient you are because there are so few quality deals to review. You'll get your work done early, and you'll be able to get caught up on watching HBO's Silicon Valley series, which I think you must be a secret writer for.
They did come to my poker game.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And then further, in one of your recent podcasts, you said to a young entrepreneur from Orlando, Florida, who had just pitched you,
good company.
Businesses in Florida are all scams. Move or get move or get a PO box.
right, I can explain myself.
So hang on. And he was worse. He said some worse things. So now that you're in front of an entire room of Miamians, okay?
In fairness, she was from Orlando. I think we're
Oh,
all
no,
going to agree on Orlando.
No, you extended it to the entire state. You said, so are you telling us to forget angel investing and just focus on sea level rise solutions so we don't lose our homes? You know, do we have to go pack it up and get on the first flight to Silicon Valley or hand over all of our cash to your syndicate? Because seriously, you were harsh, and I think you need to.
Let me explain.
Please.
Okay, on an angel investing basis, one thing people get wrong is when they read the book.
Do you have any Florida investments?
No.
There you go.
But anyway, no, I'm joking. I'm going to have one after today. Here's the thing. I'll explain it to you very clearly. If you want to be an angel investor, I say in the book, if you want to be a great angel investor, you either have to live in Silicon Valley or go to Silicon Valley on a regular basis so that you can have that deal flow, because the name of the game is to hit an outlier. You want to hit, an Airbnb, a Google, a Facebook, an Uber, Dropbox, something that becomes worth billions or tens of billions of dollars.
And he's saying that none of those could possibly be happening in South Florida.
No. What I'm saying is, historically, the biggest outcomes have come from the Bay Area. So you want to have that in your portfolio. Now, when I did the Uber investment, Thumbtack investment, I was living in Los Angeles and going up every week or every other week for 2 days to do investments. So you can be an angel, live somewhere else, but you must have access to the greatest deal flow, and currently that's in Silicon Valley. Now, a great entrepreneur can come from anywhere. That is the truth. A great entrepreneur, Magic Leap is here, Snapchat is in LA, Etsy, Kickstarter, Tumblr, DoubleClick, and many other companies from New York. Of course, China, and then even in the book I talk about Stockholm has as many unicorns per capita
They're doing well.
as LA. They have 9 unicorns there, Spotify, SoundCloud, Klarna, a bunch of companies in Stockholm. So great entrepreneurs can come from anywhere, but to be a truly great angel investor at this moment in time, you're probably going to need to be in the Bay Area or come there on a regular basis. Now, when it comes to other markets, if you're an entrepreneur and you're based here, and you really want to raise money, the number of angel investors here who have had great success, you can probably count them on, I don't know, how many are there? 30? 20?
Angel investors?
Angel investors, early stage investors.
So this market is about 4 years old.
Right.
Truly.
So I'll tell you how it
So
will go. You need to have a magic leap, go public,
Right.
create a 50 or 100.
That's
so
exactly
you're
right.
just
And then those
nascent
folks
right now.
leave. What happens is those folks who cash out, who
Yeah.
work there,
Become
hopefully
angels.
stay,
Yeah.
become angels, and or start new companies here in South Florida.
Perfect. So you're at that point.
And that's what happened in New York. We both
It
were in
did.
New York at the same time.
Yeah,
We
and-
saw that community grow. And
Yeah, DoubleClick, Kevin Ryan, after
Right.
DoubleClick made a bunch of money, he invested in Business Insider, a CDN, Gilt Group, and a bunch of other things. So you did see that, right? And same thing with Lear Hippo. Eric Hippo was at Ziff Davis and then became a venture capital. So you will see that happen. It will happen here. It's happened in LA.
It didn't, New York didn't become New York. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts or lessons about how things developed there, because it's taken 20 years at least for them to start
It's been
to
a
have
long
that
story,
movement.
and now they have a cohort of unicorns, but they haven't had a decacorn yet. So they still haven't had a $10 billion company. So they still have work to do. What I'll say to entrepreneurs is you have to be cutthroat, which means if you can't get funded here, get on a plane and move your company to Silicon Valley for, 6 months. Just base yourself out of there for 6 months. Open an office there. I think actually the high art and the thing I'm pursuing right now, I would have told people 5 years ago, fuck it. If you're a first-time entrepreneur, just go to the Valley and move there and get the money. What I'll tell people now is it's so expensive there that I think the high art and the best practice is going to be keep your company in Vancouver, Toronto, Miami, LA, but open up an office in Silicon Valley, get a WeWork there, and spend a ton of time there. Because in Silicon Valley, if you meet 10 investors a week, you will never run out of investors to meet. And the reason is, when Masayoshi-san buys out a bunch of early Uber investors like he did this month, they're all going to be like, hey, Jason, I read your book. Can I be in the syndicate? Hey, can I do some investing? And then we get another, call it 100 to 500 angel investors. These are big a large number of angel investors. And for them to write you a 50K or 250K check is not a big deal because they just sold 10, 20, 30, $40 million in shares. They're looking for that kind of opportunity. And by the way, they're smart. They help grow Google. They help grow Facebook.
Yeah.
So
Jason's right with that model. We have an investment in a portfolio company based here in Miami called Nearpod. And they started the company here. It was a 3-person founding team. They grew the business, but they, from the very beginning, had an office in San Francisco,
Yep.
which was their marketing office. The CEO was based out there. The CMO and the chief sales officer was based here. They were able to grow the company. They had all the relationships. They had a number of investors from San Francisco as well as South Florida. And
what does a 1-bedroom cost here? If you got like a decent
a-
1-bedroom, not with the doorman or anything like that, but like a 1-bedroom that you're not going to get killed in, but what does that cost, $1,000?
2,000. Miami's not cheap.
What if it's 20 minutes from where we are right now?
Less.
1,000? And 40 minutes from there? 40 minutes from here? How much?
It's in the Everglades?
Well, yeah, in the Everglades. How much? Anyway, the point is, if you were 40 minutes outside of here, you could probably get an apartment for $1,000 or $700, or you could share an apartment. And, that doesn't exist in Silicon Valley anymore.
No,
If you commute an hour, you're still paying $2,000. And if you're in the city, you're paying $3,500 or $2,500 if you got lucky. So the idea that you could have a sales team of telemarketers, SDRs, or customer support in San Francisco has gone away. I mean, we literally had a Medium post a couple of years ago where this woman was like, fuck you, Jeremy Stoppelman, for all these free Kind bars and food and $14 an hour. Go fuck yourself. I can't live on $14 an hour. And she was not incorrect about that reality. She was incorrect about the way she handled it, but after that post came out, Jeremy Stoppelman was like, you're so right. I totally feel you. These jobs are now moving to Salt Lake City, where $14 an hour and Kind bars for free,
It's a big deal.
and an espresso machine is a BFD.
Big deal.
And you know what? That's the truth. I literally have this amazing social media person in Toronto, and I told my team, we can't find people in Silicon Valley, and the people we find, they get another job offer and they leave in 12 or 24 months. I'm building an office, I'm considering building an office in Toronto to put sales and marketing and social media people and writers, because it's a much better
They
opportunity.
can't hang on to their employees. That's exactly right.
Well, if you got paid $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year in, one of those cities in, outside of the major ones, you'd feel pretty good. Okay, I got a career path here. I can pay my mortgage. In San Francisco, if you're making less than $70K, you're it's a disaster. Literally, the receptionist, is getting paid $70,000. I'm not kidding. $70,000 for a receptionist out of school.
No, we know.
Because that's the only way you could ever survive.
In San Francisco, absolutely.
In San Francisco. It's a disaster.
So here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I got all 3 questions answered. Thank you. We're going to have our pitches now. If our 3 entrepreneurs haven't run out the door screaming yet.
Okay.
So we're going to have you do what you do on your podcast.
Sure.
Okay.
Are they going to pitch here?
And they're going to come up this way. So who's first?
I turn around?
Maria, who's? Sebastian. Okay, great.
And when you come up, just tell us if you want the
So
red pill
this is
or
Sebastian
the
Scholl.
blue pill.
Test. We got
Perfect. Okay. Let's give Sebastian a big round of applause.
Yeah.
2 minutes on the clock. 3, 2, go.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Scholl, and I'm the founder and lead engineer at RampX, an automated role-play simulator that shortens onboarding, expedites learning curves, and better prepares salespeople. I'd like to ask you to think about how important practice is when developing a new skill. Ultimately, developing any skill requires consistent and deliberate practice. Today's employers are faced with choosing what professional development tools to invest in, because good hiring plus that choice is what will either make or break their companies. However, the way we look at professional training and development is broken, because our tools and systems aren't really about practice. They only focus on coaching. Ultimately, they lead employees to being unprepared because they don't give them the deliberate practice opportunities that they need to become experienced. relying on these tools to prepare employees for their jobs is like relying on sports films to prepare athletes for game day. Ultimately, however, imagine if employees were able to practice consistently and deliberately in receiving individualized coaching along the way. And imagine if companies captured data that let them quickly make informed staffing decisions. Rampex has built a product that does that, and we're first focusing on salespeople. Using virtual reality and artificial intelligence, Rampex gives salespeople the practice they need through immersive simulation training, and their companies get rich data and insights for managing. This is the platform that the $93 billion US training industry needs, especially when all our competitors are still relying on traditional media like PDFs, videos, and quizzes. To date, we've closed a pre-seed round here locally in Miami. I've led a team of engineers to develop a beautiful beta that launched in December. We've already onloaded our first pilot, which is one of South Florida's largest real estate companies. More in the pipeline, and if anyone here is interested in being a part of our growth and story, please contact me. Thank you.
Okay. You want to give feedback too? Go ahead.
I've already heard all these.
Oh, okay. You want the red pill or the blue pill? You want like radical honesty, candidness?
Slap them together and throw them at me.
Okay. So never read a script because you feel robotic and it makes everybody feel uncomfortable. What you need to do is just look at the slide and say it in your own authentic words, however they come to you at that moment. I understand like a script is helpful, but practice that. It's one of the things we do in our incubator because you don't want to come across as robotic reading from a script, because if you keep reading from a script, you are going to get into this monotone and everybody's going to check their phones. Putting that aside, this is a very real business. I know this because we had an investment in a company called Interviewed.com, which was just bought. It was horrible. We made 9 times our money. That's the worst thing that could ever happen for me now. Like an entrepreneur called me and was like, hey, we're getting bought. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're going to make 9 times your money. I said, what? We could add a 0 to that. We could add 2 zeros to that. Don't sell. If this company, this great company wants to buy you, let's keep going. So I know the space because what they did was they did this watch a person do something in hiring. You're saying, let's put somebody into a simulation after they're hired. And what I love about it is you picked a category where there's money. The sales department always has money because they make money. So when the sales head comes to the CEO and she says, hey, can we get some money for the sales training software? It's going to cost $50 a person per month. And they're like, $50 a person per month? They're like, yeah, but it's going to get us 3 extra sales a year. They're like, great, do it. Right? So good target. It was a little bit weird, the virtual reality thing. So I was like, okay, salespeople are putting on headsets. I don't know if I buy that, but who knows? Like I would want to explore more. So your goal in a presentation format like this, or walking, and stalking somebody to the elevator, or God forbid to the urinals, which does happen to me once in a while. Take the urinal pitch, so to speak. It's awkward. It happens. Not kidding. No selfies at the urinal, please. That's super inappropriate. That has happened too. Can I take a selfie? After I'm finished urinating. And what's great about what you've done here is it's intriguing. You added 2 buzzwords, AI and VR, to something that I've seen many times. I've seen people do training software like this, on-the-job training software. So I'd want to learn more. And you almost got the real, like, ooh, I'm super interested, when you started talking about your customer. And then you said you had a pilot, but you didn't say it was paid, which in my spidey sense means it's not paid, or you're scared of charging them. I start getting worried. And there's only one, and I want to know how you sourced it, because my experience has been anybody can build a product today. It's not hard to do. Give you 0 credit for that. Anybody can have an idea. In fact, when you're sleeping tonight, 1/3 of you will have ideas and remember them. Ideas mean nothing. Building a new product, building a good product, it actually doesn't mean anything anymore. What matters is the traction. And when you got to the traction, we had 1 customer, nope, pilot, and you didn't mention money. So to make this kick-ass, you'd say, we have 9 paying customers. 2 of them are people, companies I worked with before, but 7 of them we got from Facebook ads and LinkedIn. We've had great success with the LinkedIn ad network, so we've acquired 7 customers of our own, and our average lifetime value of a customer, we think, is going to be 30 months or more. Obviously hard to project, but we pay $300 to acquire those customers, and they're paying $500 a month, so we break even immediately. So tell us about the pilot.
Yeah, so what I've done here locally to get the pilot off the ground is because, we just actually launched the...
Time. Let's do a little sportscasting here. Terrible, terrible, terrible trend that entrepreneurs have is they, like presidential candidates, the journalist asks them a question, and then they go off on some other tangent that has nothing to do with the question. I don't care about, I want to know, is it paid or not? That was my primary concern. So answer that first.
It's not paid.
I knew it. I knew it. Why not? Are you scared of making money, Sebastian?
I've gotten them to sign an agreement that if we hit benchmarks on the pilot, they convert after 6 months to paying.
All right.
So the goal with that was to be, we want some early betas, we want them learning about the product and testing it out as soon as possible to get that sticking point out of the way when we're sure we can deliver value. 6 months, if we hit these benchmarks which we're pre-decided on, they convert.
Let me just get in your head for just a minute here. How do I tell this story? Anyway, famous entrepreneur had a very famous product, and the most famous actor in the world, and I was there, said, "Oh, that's awesome, give me one for free, and I will show it to everybody in the world." And he said, "Do you work at movies for free? We don't give away free products, you have to buy it like everybody else." Right? Steve Jobs not giving free phones to anybody. He didn't give a fuck who you are. You pay for your fucking phone. Right? And you know what? Ubers were never free. They wouldn't beta test Ubers. Like, we think that this cab is worth money, so you should, but we'll give it to you for free for 6 months. Like, fuck it.
Good advice.
Be aggressive. And the reason I'm telling you this is, all you're doing is you're putting off the reality of your business, which is you need to know if people are willing to pay for you. Get that piece of data. Tell them it's $500 a month.
That's good
Thank
advice.
you. There's one VC in the audience who's like, that's an investor. It's got to be an investor because investors are
It was an investor.
Of course it is, I know. Listen, I know it's not paid. I know you're an investor. I know you have dual PhDs. I know this stuff because I do this all day long. You need to be cutthroat. You're too nice of a guy. I can tell by the sweater. Fuck it. Just get out there and be like, fuck it. You ever see Goodfellas? You ever see the movie Goodfellas?
Yeah.
There's a great scene in that. FYPM. Fuck you, pay me. They go in there, that guy from the dry cleaner is not paying off his gambling debt, and Joe Pesci wraps the fucking phone around his neck and starts whacking him with the headset. I don't care, you fucking late, you fucking pay me. He starts beating him, right? That's what you need to channel. You need to channel Joe Pesci. Fuck you, pay me. You're late, the guy's late with his debt. Fuck you, I need my money, pay me. Get that money, because if you start, you're training them to not pay you. You're training them that you're a nice guy and they can roll over you. You don't want to train them that, and you're training this investor that you're not serious about business. Okay? But you're putting all this hard work in. You're putting all this hard work in and you're making something of quality. Right? And then you're like, oh my God. Oh God, we did it. We made the fucking iPhone. This is incredible, right? Here, take one. And it's like, but I don't need it for free. It's only $900. These people are a sales team. They're making money, right? Are you selling it to somebody who's a nonprofit who has no money?
Definitely not.
Okay. What, do they have office space?
They do.
Oh, they're not working out of a cafe? They're not. Okay. Do they pay the people who work there? Or are those people volunteers?
It's Century 21 Premier Elite Real Estate here in Miami.
So Century 21, it's a large corporation that has offices, and the people there don't work for free. And do they have computers in this space? They have They do have computers.
Jason,
did Dell give them to them for free?
Jason, we need you to do the next one.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, if you take anything from this, it's
Sebastian,
to get paid.
that was great. Thank you.
I'm trying to get in. Good job. Good job.
Hi Hi, my name is Olivia, and I'm CEO of Deep Blocks. We are a SaaS company coming out of Singularity University in Silicon Valley. We're using machine learning to digitize and optimize real estate development, the process of real estate development. So right now, analyzing real estate is very arduous, time-consuming, and expensive. Even a real estate developer requires multiple, sometimes dozens of industry experts just to see what can be done on a site. Deep Blocks is combining and dynamically integrating all of the data, financial calculations, and architectural constraints and putting it in a single smart centralized system. Today we're turning a process that takes 3 to 6 weeks into a couple of minutes at a fraction of the cost. Our MVP includes a SaaS model that a user can select a site and understand according to zoning which of the uses or mixed uses allows them the better return on cost. So again, unlimited amount of options, unlimited analysis without the need of experts. But in fact, these experts are also our users. We have a bottom-up approach to our total addressable market, which includes all of these players, and it's $70 million per market, which translates to $42 billion globally. And the $70 million is what's being expended in the pre-development analysis. So we want to take 10% of this market and get it to 4.6 billion globally. We're deploying a paid pilot to our very first group of customers, who are our investors, actually real estate investors. And as we're deploying this pilot and getting the system smarter, we're working on growing it so then you can analyze an entire portfolio or master plan. We're also adding to our technology stack by including all of the systems combined in the pre-schematic phase.
Time. Big round of applause. All right. So, this is a piece of enterprise software that a real estate developer can use to figure out where to put their next project and how much it will cost and something like that. Do I understand it?
Yes, not only real estate developers, but the entire ecosystem around it, yes.
Okay, so the entire ecosystem around it. So I could be an architect and then I could use this?
Absolutely.
But why would an architect do it? They're not
Because
building
an
projects.
architect, one of the biggest tasks is to understand the...
Yep.
One of the biggest tasks is to understand the zoning. Right now, they don't have any access to the financial.
Okay, I got it. So if an architect had been hired by a firm, they could go then buy your software.
Right, they can offer unlimited analysis now and can have...
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's that one. I think that's off. So it's a good-looking presentation. It lacked examples. So if I were to give you one piece of advice and you were in our incubator, I would stop you and say, okay, instead of making all of us in the room and other investors try to figure out what it is you do, who the customer is, how it makes money, give us an actual example and walk us through it.
Sure, right here.
Hold on. The way to do it would be to say, meet Jason. This is our actual customer. Jason's also an investor. He's a real estate developer in Miami. He's built these 7 buildings, and he made a mistake on the 6th building he ever made. He picked a location. It actually was in the flooding zone. It actually had this issue, and it's not serviced by mass transit. And he made these mistakes. And our software solves those mistakes. And here's what he said, and here's a quote. Only because I felt like the presentation was like very high-level presentation. And sometimes if you're doing something new has anybody here actually used software like this before? Okay, so there's 4 people in the room who have, and the other 150 haven't. And so you have to know the audience. They don't know what you're talking about, and so walking them through a concrete example, that's the thing that I would say would make the presentation better. Putting that aside, you have a paid pilot, so good, but you never mentioned the exact cost. And this is another piece of advice that I always give people in our incubator after they do their presentations, because every week we have everybody do 3-minute presentations, and we have 5 world-class investors, and we record it on video. and we'll record the Q&A, and then I'll give people notes. And one of the things that you can do is, if you understand how memory works, it turns out the more detailed the more detail you use in describing something, the more specifics, the greater the retention. The more generic, the less. That doesn't make sense, but it's the truth. So if I said, I went to this donut place today and I had the salted butter donut and it had 17 pieces of rock salt on it, and the people next to me were talking about MMA and how their jiu-jitsu technique was not that good. You guys will wake up tomorrow and be like, yeah, Jason had that butter salted with 17 pieces, and the people in the MMA, people will actually remember more. So I think giving more specifics and more detail actually services the entrepreneur more. Now, some people who don't understand how memory works will leave that out and tell people, like, just give us the big, broad overview. More details, you'll actually have a better result. How much are you charging the one pilot you have?
$500 a month.
$500 a month, great. Now we're going into the Columbo mode. This is what I would be doing in a meeting. $500 a month, great. You have one customer, $500 a month. How many months have they been paying?
No, we're deploying in 2 weeks. We
Okay,
have a
so in
waiting
2
list.
weeks, they'll start using the program. Great, now I know sort of where we're at. But I might have assumed that they've been paying $500 a month for a couple of months. Okay, so we'll see if that works. Did they pay 12 months in advance, or do you have their credit card? How does it work? You're going to invoice them?
We have a waiting list right now. They're waiting.
So she answered a question that has nothing to do with what I just asked.
They have
Again?
not paid.
They haven't paid?
No. But most of them are investors, so they've invested.
Okay, but we're still talking about the one, and the question I asked was, how are they going to pay? Are they going to be invoiced, or do you have their credit card? Answer that question.
We'll have their credit card.
You will have their credit card, but you don't have their credit card.
I do not.
Right, so now we're back to that Columbo example I gave earlier. You notice how hard it was for me to get that very basic piece of information? That's because founders get a little nervous when the angel's asking the questions, or the investor, and they want to make sure they give the investor something that gives them hope. What we want is just reality. The more reality you can give us, the more we can trust you. So what happened in this very exchange is your credibility went down because you didn't answer my questions, or you didn't answer them crisply. So what I work on with founders a lot is answer the question crisply. If they ask you, do you have their credit card, or are you invoicing them? You say, we don't have their credit card yet, but I'm emailing them tomorrow to get it. Great. Better to say that than to say, we have a wait list. What? Wait list for what? I don't know what you're talking about. And so what you're trying to do is just keep building up credibility, and it turns out small numbers are okay. One of the big mistakes founders make is they try to exaggerate what's going on or puff it up a little bit, pufferfish syndrome. And the truth is, we all know, the investors in the room, that in the beginning, revenue's spiky, it's awkward, it's ugly. It's basically the stage of the two companies we see here are the teenage stage. It's awkward. Pimples, awkward, voices breaking, it's the teenage phase. Like Uber, when I met them, was called Uber Taxi, and their logo looked like it was made on Microsoft Paint. It was terrible. And I said to Travis, these are Lincoln Town cars. They're black cars. You called it Uber Taxi. You're doing this to get rid of the taxi business, and you called it taxi. This makes no logical sense. Just call it Uber. He goes, yeah, we're doing that. It's obvious. It was a mistake, and we got that. That was only the only domain we could get, but we're trying to get Uber from this music company that owns Uber. I was like, oh, can I get credit for that in the movie? He's like, credit in the movie? I was like, yeah, Sean Parker, our friend, got credit for taking the thought at Facebook. We're going to make a movie about this someday. Can I get credit? He goes, yeah, you can have credit. I was like, no, seriously. He's like, yeah. Okay. So anyway, point is, it's always awkward. Embrace the awkwardness. Yeah, you know what? We didn't have a form up yet, so we don't have their credit card, but I'm going to get it tomorrow, and we're not going to let them use it until we have the credit card. The next question is $500 for one seat, for 10 seats? How does it work?
One seat, one option at a time.
Got it. How many employees does that company have?
We have 6.
How many employees does the customer have?
It depends. So
How many, your customer, the one you have that's going to do the trial,
So we have a number of customers.
Okay, the one you talked about.
They're small to mid real estate developers.
No. There's one customer who's starting in 2 weeks. That one, the pilot, right? You said you had one?
Her office is about 10 people,
That one.
that one.
And so of those 10 people, how many could pay $500? Because maybe some are not applicable. So you think it could be a 4-seat eventually?
Probably wants around 3 seats.
3 seats, perfect. That's the information I'm trying to get to. And that's the Colombo. Oh, you said you had the linguine? Oh, I say the linguine, okay, because I talked to the chef, he didn't have the linguine. That's what I'm trying, and this is my life. Okay, it's a great business and success. I would want to hear more. In both cases, the number one mission was accomplished, so I'm giving you guys a hard time so that the rest of the audience can learn. So I think they deserve, both of them, a big round of applause for being terrorized.
So I'm Chris, CEO and co-founder of Where By Us, and we exist to help the world's curious locals live like they live here in their cities. The short thing is that there's a ridiculous number of young people moving back to, and staying in a growing set of cities that nobody cared much about 5 years ago as a media market. And what we see is that these folks who are moving in or staying in these cities, they want to be connected. They want to know what's going on in their cities. They want to feel like they're a part of those communities, that you know what's happening. Newspapers used to serve that role. They've been gutted for obvious reasons, but the need still exists, and in some ways bigger than it ever has, as cities are growing at this really fast pace. But the need is not about more content. There aren't people who wake up in the morning and go, I wish there was more content on the internet. The need is about how do we help people curate and stay on top of what's happening in their city and feel connected to the life of the place that they're living. That you know what's going on and you know how to be a good local, how to live there. But traditional local news stuff doesn't serve that, because it's about serving you more content all the time rather than helping you connect more deeply. So we build solutions for that. We build local media brands in growing cities that help curious locals connect and understand what's happening around them. We publish daily email newsletters through local brands that are built for the city that they serve, help you keep up with what's going on, storytelling and engagement projects that are about building and deepening relationships with locals. Part of that is about helping us understand and build better models of data about people's behavior. What do you do in the city? What kind of local are you? What motivates you and gets you out and gets you engaged? We collect data about what events people go to, what they read, what categories they're interested in, and use that to help us personalize what we're able to serve to them. We're building a lot of technology around that, helping us act on those personas both for our customers and for our users directly by helping them get access to better material. We also help build technology for email newsletter advertising, serving and optimizing ads directly in email newsletters. We have brands in Miami and Seattle right now, about to launch 2 more. We're doing $1.5 million in revenue run rate right now, $1 million last year, and we're starting to expand to the next set of cities. We're going to go from 2 to 10 cities this year. We reach about 2.5 million people a month, 65,000 folks in total active daily audience. And the model is built to allow us to launch in new markets and build market position efficiently over 6 months to get to break even within a 6-month time frame as we launch new brands.
10 seconds.
So we're almost at the end of a $1.25 million round led by McClatchy. We raised $500K from Seed Invest, mostly from our own users.
And time.
And that's what we're doing.
Great.
Thanks.
Big round of applause. Okay. I was prepared to hate this. The first minute, I was like, oh my God, he's building Yelp or Foursquare or Gowalla. I was an investor in Gowalla. Oh my God. Oh, was I supposed to do this as Trump? Oh my God, I was going to totally hate this. And I was like, oh, he's going to do a local guide app. Oh my God, these things don't make any money. And you're setting it up and setting it up. And then you're like, but it's email newsletters. And I was like, oh, okay, I know that. I'm doing that at inside.com, and we have a launch ticker. And there's the skim, and it's like email is the new black. Like you can go right directly to your customers. You don't have to go through Facebook or Google or YouTube or Twitter and then have them disintermediate you, which is what they keep doing to people. And then you're like, and we have a $1.5 million run rate, and we did $1 million, because I was about to say, well, wait, run rate, that sounds a little fugazi. You took your best month of your time to by 12, but then you cut me off at the pass and said, and we did $1 million last year, so I know that you can't be playing with numbers because that's the whole year, and that's $80K a year. So I'm like, something going on here. And then I was like, well, how does it scale? And bang, you cut me off at the pass. And you're like, and we have a model where we can make money, and we'll launch in the next city, and we got this flywheel going. And I was like, okay, so this is the best pitch so far, and let's give him a big round of applause. And it helps to go last, but you had this stuff in the deck already. The first minute was horrible. We're all people were like groaning in the, how many people thought this was going to be terrible in the first minute? Raise your hand. Right? So anyway, there's a good lesson there.
I'm curious, how many people subscribe to Nootropic?
Amazing, great. So that, and by the way,
You're welcome.
master tip there. The next time you're in this kind of situation, say, hey, I run something called Nootropic. I'm wondering, did anybody get it? And boom, now you would have got them, like literally, we're having brunch tomorrow. Like, as a matter of fact, let me just say this. For the three founders, why don't I just say the three founders get to come to brunch tomorrow automatically if they want to. So, because then we'll spend more time together. But I'll still accept another, what did we say, 8? We're going to do 5? Wait, are you guys coming too now? We have to, like, this is going to get big now. Let's say these 3 plus 6 more, because I think I have a reservation for 8, and then I can always squeeze in one more in. Okay.
Good job, Chris.
It's really good because most people, so anyway, the lesson for you is when you have the nuts, you play poker? You ever play poker? No, okay. In poker, there's something called the slow roll. You know what that is? All right, we're playing in a hand. We've all got our money in. And you've got the nuts, the best hand. And we get all our money in, and I'm like, okay, I have a set of kings. And you're like, oh, you have a set of kings? I have quad aces. And you're like, well, why did you, like, it's the lowest class, hardcore, bad thing you can do. It's the rudest thing you can do in poker, is to slowly turn over the fact that you have the best hand and break my heart. And in your case, it's like, you have the best pitch so far because you're making shit tons of money and everybody in the audience uses it. These 2 other pitches we heard, nobody in the audience uses the software unless they brought one of their customers with them. You have this like amazing phenomenon, so you got to get to that immediately. We made $1 million. If I was doing this presentation, what's the name of this company?
Where by us?
What?
Where by us?
Where by us. Hi, I'm Jason Calacanis, the CEO of Where by Us. We produce 3 city newspapers, 3 city emails that made $1 million last year, and we're on a $1.5 million run rate. We've only raised $1 million to date. And I have a feeling some people here might get the first one, which is called Tropics. Anybody here get Tropics? Great. Let me tell you a little bit more about how our business is surging right now. Now, I did that in 30 seconds, and you took 2 minutes. My pitch is better than yours, because mine is all facts, right up front, and you've got everybody's fucking attention now, especially the investors. Any investors in the audience, raise your hand. Great. Everybody take a moment to register who the investors are so you can tag them later. No, in all honesty, there were about 10 investors. How many investors would want to take a meeting with this company? Raise your hand if you would. Okay, keep your hand up if you're an investor. Okay, so now you get all those meetings. But in all seriousness, like I know the business you're going for, and when an industry like the newspapers collapse, something has to come after it. I agree with you, people are not going to just give up on their need to know what's going on locally. And one of the great ways to find a great business is to look in the graveyard. Many times people try to build these businesses. There was a business Microsoft did called Sidewalk. In the early days of the web, you can look it up on the Wikipedia. Sidewalk. Anybody remember Sidewalk? Raise your hand if you do. That guy does. He's old. No, you have to be old to remember this, because literally when the web came out, I was like 25 years old. It was 1995. And Microsoft hired a woman named Laura Stein, who runs TEDx now. True story. Coming full circle. At least she was the person who ran it, and they were doing local city guides before Yelp, long before Yelp. And there was one called Fandango. Fandango? No, that's Fandango. Vendingo. It was a mobile one before there were apps. It was an SMS space. You'd say pizza 90210, and it would tell you the pizza joints in 90210 by SMS. When only 10% of companies supported it. You look in the graveyard and you see all these dead companies. There was a reason why people tried. And sometimes, and this is why the question, why now, comes up often. What's the why now for your business? Why will this business work now? Answer that question.
It's about the,
Keep using it, they'll turn it up.
It's about the growth rate of a lot of these cities right now. There's a huge uptick in new business activity, new business starts, and local population that's creating a
That's a
really
good now.
big
Okay.
demand we can capture.
Okay, so the why now is people are moving to cities. I would say that's probably secondary to the fact that all the local newspapers have gone away and all the alt weeklies have gone away, like Village Voice and everything collapsed, Time Out collapsed, and this new generation of people want to get things in on their phones. So the why now, you believe it's people are moving to cities. I would argue people have still been in the cities. What happened was all the local weeklies collapsed. That model was not sustainable, and the phone came out. So one of those two is, you could rank them, which one had the impact, but winner, best presentation. And out of these three companies, I really like the email one, and the real estate one, if they get the credit card and 5 more, then it would be in my zone. And if the first one stops doing trials and gets money, and that seems interesting too.
So they should be sending updates too.
Well, I think here's a really great tip for you. I would say 2/3 of my companies send me regular updates. And then double that number of companies I passed on investing send me updates. And to the 1/3 of companies that don't send me updates, I say something like this: companies I haven't invested in send me more updates than you. I want you to consider that, because when you need follow-on funding,
That's right.
it's going to take me a much longer time to assess if I should do it or not. And I may not have the time to figure out if I should do a follow-on funding for your company. You may want to think about this. And
It's a good advice.
when people, now I include it in our agreements that you send monthly updates, not because I want to be a jerk about it or anything, it's because I want to help.
No, we just
I want to
started
know
that.
when you're out of money so that I can give you more
Right.
or introduce you to people. And the other thing is, I tell people who are coming back to me for money, my chief of staff says, oh, by the way, you want us to invest in this bridge round. And you sent us 3 updates in the last 12 months. Do you think if we do this bridge, we're going to put in the document that you'll do it 12 times? Will you commit to that? Oh, totally, I'm sorry. And we're like, great. And then if we get 9 out of 12 or 8 out of 12, at least we feel like we're helping them get focused.
Okay. So in this era of Me Too and Time's Up,
Yep.
Silicon Valley investors are now afraid to meet with women one-on-one. What can we do
Can we
as
pass?
female founders
Yeah.
to support each other in power, to get you all to invest in us and to continue supporting us?
Yeah. That's really disappointing to hear. And is that the reality, you think?
In some cases.
Yeah. I've always had a rule that I have multiple people in the room independent of gender, because I never want to have anybody say something bad about me, like, oh, Jason was a jerk, but as you can see, I was a jerk tonight, so. But no, I always have my chief of staff in the room anyway taking notes, and she's, learning how to make investments. So that's a difficult question for me to answer, because I've never heard that this was happening. What I will say is, I think directionally, the industry is getting a lot better. And the number of female founders has increased greatly. I do believe that female founders and I've heard this from the female founders I've invested in, kind of get held to a higher standard. And so I think you just need to know that going in, and I think women do know that. And just, if you know that going in, it's kind of sad that we have to even have this conversation, but I do think the female founders I've invested in, I'll say this, are more serious than the male founders. And I think the male founders sometimes are more entitled and more apt to do the nonsense I talked about earlier about going to Web Summit. And then I see sometimes the female founders will turn down the speaking gigs and be more focused on revenue. So I'd say knowing that you're going to get judged twice as hard, focus 10 times harder, and it's sad that we have to even have that conversation, but understand the reality that you live in and keep focused on those metrics. That's what I would do. And what I told a lot of female people who wanted to become venture capitalists, who are women or underrepresented groups, I said, I don't think you're going to be able to crack these existing venture groups, because they tend to add one partner every fund. which means one partner every 30 months. And I said, just start your own venture firms.
They have
Like,
been.
and they have.
They have.
And I have had a number of women on we do a podcast now, Angel podcast, and we've had a number of women on who said, I heard you say that, and we went and did it. And I think the great thing that's coming out of this whole movement right now is the pay inequality too is just insane. I have 3 daughters, and I'm fire about this. Like, how do people pay women a different dollar amount than men? And so I think there's got to be transparency in what people are getting paid. Like the idea that 2 people on the same sitcom or in the same role are going to get paid 2 different rates? That's fucking crazy. Like, that has to change immediately. So, I could mansplain it all night, but I don't have the answers. And I hate to mansplain stuff or white male cis-splain stuff. I mean, I have all the,
That's great.
what do you think?
Oh, I'm not going there.
Yeah, see? And that's another challenge is if you go there, I understand your point, like,
No,
there
I'm
is
on
now a
saying
fear of
we're
even having a
expected to be
dialogue.
somewhere and we're already a
And
half
it's to
hour
your
late.
point. It is to your point that like we
But-
can't even have a dialogue anymore about it, and I think that's really tragic. We need to have this
No,
dialogue.
I think we are having more dialogues,
having more
actually.
dialogue.
I think we
Okay.
are having a lot more dialogues, and I will just say this, I started my career in this space in '98, and I was always the only female in the room, always. And I look around, and for me, this is a huge sea change, because I am never the only female in the room anymore. So, and even on the investor side.
Yeah.
I'm not. So, that's.
It's about 5% right now.
Yeah,
in
well, okay,
investors.
right. On the investor side, it's lower. But I would just say I've seen a lot of progress, and so I am very optimistic about that will continue to
I
change.
have one thing to add to it too, which
And
is
we have a number of female CEOs in our portfolio.
yeah, you have to. Freda Kapoor, told me at one point because I was kind of like. I picked the speakers at our conference based on merit. I'm not lowering, had that kind of position. Like, I am blind to all things, and I just look at merit. And she was like, yeah, you could do it that way. It's understandable, it's logical. Or, since you're in a position of power, you could change the ratio.
Yeah.
And I was like,
But do you look at your guests for your podcast as if they're male or female and make a
yeah,
decision?
I actually do.
You do?
Yeah, I do now. And I didn't used to. I think I've evolved in that way where I used to be like, I want only CEOs of billion-dollar companies. I only want to, I was, kind of like a hardcore, like merit-based, and then I realized it has not been merit-based for a long time. It's been biased for a long time. So maybe we need to actually make some change. And I talked to my team, which is just happens to be at this current time predominantly female. And I said, what can we do to change the ratio? Freda's got a point. And we came up with something called Founder.University. And we did our first female-only founder university. We don't broadcast this tremendously around to try to get cookies and stars, give us credit. We did it because we want to see the numbers actually change. We did founder university for female founder university, and then next week we're doing founder university for underrepresented groups. And on the form you just say what group, if you want to, you think you're part of. So some people might have put themselves as underrepresented and be cis white men, I don't know. But you can actually be part of the change. So what I would say is, if you want to be part of the change, host female founder office hours as an investor or underrepresented groups, and open your doors a little bit wider and open your perspective. So what I did was, I told people, if an underrepresented founder wants to meet with me, I am much more likely to meet with them even if they're not as far along with their company, because I want to see the numbers change. And if there's some blockage in the system where certain groups are not getting in, maybe I could be part of the
solution.
Give the solution instead of being another person who's just like, there's a standard and we're just going to hold the line. And I look back and I go, you know what? Maybe I could have helped move the line. And I spent 15 years of my life in, not positions of power, but as a journalist, maybe not moving the line, and I want to spend the rest of my life helping move the line. Let's help, make the ratio the right ratio. And I think people do get judged harder, and people don't understand their biases. And that's the other thing I've learned a lot of is my wife, who's Asian American, she's Korean. I wrote in my book in one chapter, hey, listen, I'm an outsider, and she said, you're an outsider. I said, yeah, I'm a kid from Brooklyn. My parents were broke. I made it. I broke my way. And she's like, are there anybody who's more of an outsider than you? I'm like, I am the quintessential outsider. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people behind me who are even more outsiders. Like if you have a single mom and you didn't have two parents growing up, or they weren't middle class, or they couldn't buy you a computer. So I actually rewrote that chapter after my wife sort of opened my eyes a little bit to it. And I think everybody's got to do that. Like if you're a...
So, on that note, with the good thing we're not doing
anyway,
three
we can talk all
questions.
night about it.
Thank you, Jason. We want you to come back and do more of this.
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody, and to Refresh and Maria for organizing this, and to our presenters for taking the time to pull this together. Thank you.